Welcome to the Supplement Engineer Podcast. My name is Robert Chinetsky. Rejoining us for his second appearance on the show is Mr. Matt Schifferle, founder of the Red Delta Project. Welcome back, sir. How are you doing?
Hey, Rob, great to be back. Thanks again for having me on here. Interesting times we're living in these days.
Absolutely, and that's the elephant in the room, is that the coronavirus has put the entire world on shutdown for better or worse, and wherever everybody's feelings may fall on the line of it's overreaction, it's not enough, that's not what we're here to debate. We're not debating the politics of the situation. We are here to discuss how people can get better results at home with their fitness. And so obviously, this is a supplement-centric podcast, but I'm an ardent believer in bodyweight exercise. It makes up a significant portion of my training at home, and I've been training at home for close to 10 years now. So it's always been something that's very near and dear to my heart. So I want to give this opportunity to turn people onto your channel and for you and I to have a conversation about bodyweight bodybuilding basics.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot of doom and gloom out there these days. Things seem pretty negative. When it comes to fitness, I know a lot of folks out there are like, well, okay, no gym, time to look at what can I do at home? How do I set up a home gym and stuff? But unfortunately, a lot of the attitude out there I keep running across is people are like, well, I'm hoping not to lose too much progress, or I'm hoping to keep as much as I can until this whole thing blows over. When the reality is we need to have the opposite approach, where we are at the precipice of so much opportunity to take things to a whole new level and beyond. And I'm already hearing from a lot of people being like, I'm starting to lose weight again. I'm feeling more enthusiastic about my workouts, motivation's increasing. Like, things are getting better now from a fitness standpoint if we have the right approach to this, rather than let's just hang on and try not to lose as much as possible, when knowing that this is great opportunity at our feet right here.
Absolutely. And what are some of the tips that you would give people? Say that they're the typical gym bro or broette, and they're used to going in and knocking out 3 sets of 10 for chest, and then 3 sets of 10 for back, and then bouncing back and forth. What kind of steps do you have? Because if you've never done either an intense bodyweight workout or a high volume style bodyweight training, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. So how do you approach people that are coming from that machine, dumbbell, barbell background and transitioning to bodyweight training?
Yep. There's a number of tips, because I did a similar transition to myself over 10 years ago. My history was very machine centric, a lot of free weights. I came from a bodybuilding background where it's like, okay, it's chest day, time to attack the muscle from every conceivable angle. And I would be like, no, you can't work your chest without a cable crossover machine and all these sorts of things, to now being like, dude, just give me some floor and a pull-up bar and I am good. And it really is a very different perspective in how we're training our body. If you try to train the body the same way as you would with free weights and machines, you're going to fall short. It's kind of like jumping on a motorcycle and saying, where's the steering wheel? Like, where's the gas pedal? How do I drive it like a car?
Yeah.
You're on a different machine here. You're using a different tool. If you try to use it the same way as the other tool, they're not going to match up perfectly. So the first thing I always recommend is get familiar with progressive calisthenics techniques. Because if you're coming to this bodyweight world with the same attitude that you used to have with the bodyweight exercises you learned in gym class, it's not going to be even close to enough. And you're probably not going to get what you want. And this is why a lot of people are like, you can't get bigger and stronger with bodyweight training, because they're coming to it with such a limited set of tools. And they're usually fairly weak tools at that. So that's the first step, is get progressive bodyweight training down pat. And there's so many different ways you can progress this stuff. You actually have more opportunity to progress bodyweight training than you do with classic machines and free weights. So if you know those avenues, you'll actually find that it's easier to break plateaus and easier to discover new ways of making progress than you may have, which is why some people like myself, when we go to bodyweight training, we're like, oh my gosh, suddenly making progress again versus falling back. So there's lots of ways you can do that. Of course, there's all my resources at reddeltaproject.com. The other step that I recommend is get a regular workout schedule still in place. Because with a gym, one of the biggest advantages to working out in a gym is that you have the ability to say, this is what I'm doing, these are the times I'm doing it. These are the days I'm working these muscle groups and so on, because you have to do that with the gym. You're like, well, when am I going to get there? And when I'm there, what am I going to do? With body weight, you have a lot of freedom and flexibility, but the disadvantage is that freedom and flexibility often leaves people without direction and without the structure they need in order to keep their training on track. So they just kind of do whatever, whenever kind of thing. They don't have any plan in place. So you still want to have a structured routine, or at least somewhat of a basic plan in place where you're like, all right, this is what I'm working out today. This is what I'm roughly going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. Because just having that alone will probably save you from plateaus or even serious regressions with your body weight training, which is a big mistake that a lot of people make. And then the third option that I often recommend people look into is getting really well versed in some sort of a suspension style of training, whether you're using gymnastics rings, a TRX. I'm a big fan of this NOSSK trainer. It's called an RT-17 that I just recently reviewed and stuff. It's a pretty simple thing, but basically it allows you to duplicate most any free weight and machine exercise that you would find in a gym. So it's like, oh, I like this curl machine, or I like this hamstring curls, or this core machine, or whatever it is. It's like, well, you can do the same thing. And that opens you up to a whole nother world of potential progression and regression. But it also makes it a lot easier to duplicate a lot of the other exercises you may have been used to in the gym. So it's not like you have a body weight based style weight machine in your own living room. So those are my three big takeaways I recommend.
Perfect. With the suspension trainer that you were just discussing, you've also on your channel given people low-cost ways on how to engineer and build their own suspension trainer. So how do you compare the one that you've been working with recently versus the other ones that you've shown people how to build on the site?
Yeah, so DIY is a lot of fun. And usually DIY is a lot cheaper. And it's also you can make it kind of to your own specs. I have a number of different trainers I've built, one of which is called my Prusik Trainer that I discuss in my book, Smart Bodyweight Training. And a Prusik Trainer is unique in the fact that it doesn't use nylon straps or heavy like buckles and metal. Instead, it's just all rope based. It uses knots and cinch knots and stuff. And it has a lot of advantages. It's super portable, super cheap to build, very, very versatile and stuff. So the one I've been using lately, this RT-17, is essentially the same thing, but it's commercial produced. It's by this company. And this company operates at such low margins that it's actually cheaper to buy through them than it is to make your own, unless you have the materials already. So that's one of the reasons why I recommend it to folks, is because it's like if you DIY'd it, even if you could just break even, you still have to account for the cost in your energy and your gas to go to the hardware store, and you got to make the things and stuff. So most of the time you're better off actually just buying the thing outright and having, then you get all the little details. Because when you DIY stuff, it's a pretty simple approach, but there's little details that can make or break the experience for you over time, particularly like handles and stuff. Like a lot of people are like, oh, just cut it PVC handles. It's so simple. But the thing we've got to recognize is comfort and how you feel when you use it is so crucially important. It's kind of like going for a run in shoes that don't quite fit right. You give you blisters and you're hitting the front of your toes on the toe box and stuff. Yeah, it can work, but those little things add up and they can produce just enough emotional friction to basically cut you short and you lose all motivation. So having a professionally machined handle or a foot sling and stuff just makes it so much more comfortable and easier to use. And just that alone can make or break your effectiveness from using the product.
Would you recommend that one over the TRX or the Jungle Gym XT suspension trainers that are popular?
Yeah. For the most part, I would. For one, it's a fraction of the price. I think on the site, I recently checked it out, but it's still under $30. So it's super inexpensive. I'm very much also a big fan of portability and suspension devices, like gymnastics rings and stuff. A lot of people are like, oh, it's portable, but there's such a thing as semi-portable, and then there's portable.
Right.
Now, a lot of devices are semi-portable, meaning I'll take it to the park or I'll stash it in a backpack if I'm going for a hike, but it's not so portable that I'm actually going to take it on carry-on luggage because it's big, it's bulky, it's heavy. This stuff seems like it's pretty light and portable when you compare it to a weight machine, but when you're actually packing for a trip or something, it's pretty big and bulky really fast. So things like the RT-17 or even my homemade, my Bowline trainer are so compact that you put it in your suitcase and it's like you didn't even put anything in your suitcase. That's the real aspect of portability I'm always looking for is, can I have it in my bag and I don't even know I'm carrying it when I have it? That's the ultimate test for me is, can I have it with me all the time and not really be hindered by it? Or is it going to take up most of the space in my day bag and it's just going to be in the way except for when I'm using it? Now, one of the biggest differences that you want to pay attention to with these devices is if you have a dual or single anchor point system. A TRX is single anchor point. The RT-17 is also single anchor point. And the Jungle Gym is dual anchor point, similar to gymnastics rings where you're hanging it from 2 points.
Correct.
Now, in the past, I used to always say that dual anchor point is just flat out better. Single anchor point is stupid. It's dumb. There's no good reason to have it. I always used to say like single anchor point is like going out and instead of buying pairs of dumbbells, you just buy one of each weight. Like you have no advantage to that.
Right.
But the RT-17 has kind of changed my mind a little bit on that because it is just a single length of rope. And one of the advantages to using rope is that it's incredibly versatile in its application because you can throw it over tree limbs, you can knot it, you can create loops, you can do all sorts of things. So you can get a lot more versatility out of rope than straps typically. And even that system, like if you have a hanging point, like a set of monkey bars or something where you can hang it across 2 bars, you'll get the same sort of stimulus, same sort of setup as you would with dual anchor points. So you're not really losing that much out with the RT-17. If you are setting up with like a home gym and you have a straight pull-up bar and stuff, I do recommend a dual anchor point setup, especially if it's something you're just going to hang it and forget it, like you're not going to actually bring it anywhere. Things like my grind straps that I talk about also, that's another one of my DIY strap systems, or the Jungle Gym XT work well. That I would use as the main setup if it's going to be something that's more of a fixture in a home gym on a set bar.
Gotcha. Going back to progressing calisthenics, there's a number of ways to apply progressive overload. So the basic bottom of the rung, no brain power required, is just slapping more weight onto the bar. But we can also experiment with things like time under tension, decreasing leverage, increasing leverages depending on the angle of your body. You can increase range of motion. You can incorporate pauses, eccentrics, all of these different things. You can also stack multiple exercises back together, doing like supersets or giant sets. What do you have a particular favorite that you kind of start with and progress through the various levels of progressive overload, or is it kind of dependent on the exercise and the person's skill level?
Yeah, it does depend on the exercise, and it also very much depends on the skill level. One of the things to understand about calisthenics is that it forces you to really be honest with how well you know how to use your body. And right now, we're becoming more aware of what we can actually do in the absence of machines, and even to a degree, some free weight techniques have been developed over the years. They can be more effective, but the reason why they're, quote, more effective is because they kind of dumb the exercises down for us. Now, let me give you an example. Most gyms have this type of device where you sit in sort of, it looks like a bit of a chair, kind of like a high chair, where you're holding yourself up, your elbows are on a set of pads, your back is against a back pad, and your legs are hanging so you can pick your legs up. In some schools, they call this a VKR. Other places, they call it like a Roman chair.
Yep,
but basically, you're kind of holding yourself up with your body, or ab slings and stuff. Great exercise. Basically, hanging your legs down, picking them up are one of the best ways to work your abs, bar none, for sure. But the reason why this is so popular and why people produce it is because the vast majority of people do not have the strength and stability in their back, their shoulders, and their scapula to be able to adequately hang from an overhead bar. Mm-hmm. Now, if you can do that, it's going to be a much more effective exercise than that Roman chair. That is, if you have that, if you have those qualities. So over time, we've developed exercises and machines and approaches to training that have made it easier to kind of bypass and get detours around these little shortcomings that we have. Things like scapular mobility, scapular stability, hip mobility and stability. These are big ones, right? Mm-hmm. So now when you go into calisthenics training, you don't have a lot of these things that can help you compensate for any of these shortcomings. They're going to be front and foremost, mm-hmm. which is why a lot of people, when they get into bodyweight training, they hate it with a passion and they turn tail and run because it's finally, they can't hide from these weaknesses they have anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, these push-ups are hurting my wrists, and oh, I feel this in this joint, or these push-ups, I feel it now in my triceps, but not in my chest. It's like, yeah, now your weaknesses have come home to roost, so mm-hmm. to speak. Right. It's easy to kind of sweep under the rug when you were on the weight machines and stuff at the gym, but now you've got to actually acknowledge and address these things. Mm-hmm. And that was certainly my case, and is still my case to a very large degree. But if you have the courage to address these weaknesses, you're going to be far stronger and far more capable than you were before. So, roundabout answer, what you want to do is recognize that your number one job with calisthenics isn't to just work hard, is to actually learn how to use your body better. Because if you can improve what I call your neuromuscular proficiency, that's going to be the secret that everybody's looking for. Like, you improve your neuromuscular proficiency and like your shoulder stability and stuff, right. Everything you do with those areas is going to be far more effective. I don't care what exercises you're doing. I don't care how you're doing them. And I don't care what routine you're doing. They're going to produce vastly superior results. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, though, if you do not improve that neuromuscular proficiency, nothing you do will produce the results you want, no matter how hard you work. And that's the big thing that I really want people to understand going into any sort of home training, bodyweight training and stuff, is understanding that your number one job is to learn how to use your body better and to improve things like your stability and your mobility. Because once you get that stuff, getting stronger and everything, that's almost on autopilot. That'll happen so automatically, you won't even have to try to do it during your workouts. It will work very well for you.
Do you think toying with eccentrics might be a way to go about getting neuromuscular proficiency enhanced to a greater degree and learning how to feel the tension in the right muscles that you should be working and not necessarily the supporting muscles?
I don't have a whole lot of experience with eccentrics myself. And as I always say, an opinion without experience is just a guess. So I would be guessing. Yeah. Like, I honestly am not sure. I think it's a good thing to experiment with. Mm-hmm. However, my experience now has shown that by far the fastest way to become better at using your body is isometric training. Because our brains are like any other computer. Mm-hmm. And the more data they need to process, the more they get overloaded, and it's the harder for them to compute. Yeah. So whenever we're doing something with movement, and the more difficult and skillfully technical the exercise is, mm-hmm. the more computing power it takes just to do the exercise to any degree. But when you're doing an isometric exercise, that takes far less computational power in your mind. Mm-hmm. And then you can use that energy towards, all right, how am I using my abs? How am I using my abs with my hips? How am I stabilizing my back? How am I able to get my hips to open up in this lunge or this squat? Mm-hmm. And it's far easier to learn this stuff from an isometric, which is why my primary system of progressive calisthenics training, I call grind style calisthenics, right, always starts off with a couple of rounds of isometric and stability training. Mm-hmm. Because that way it's teaching you in the workout in a very regular and systematic way how to improve how well you use your body, but it's also setting you up with that neural stability and feedback that will greatly enhance the quality of every single workout you do. And that way you don't have to kind of figure it out, but it's built into the system itself, so it happens automatically.
Gotcha. Where do you get the inspiration? I guess the grind style mentality, where did the inspiration from this come from? Because the book was about to be released when we first had our first podcast together. And since then, the book has been released, and you've released an arsenal of videos supporting it and kind of building up the content library around that. But where did, I guess, the inspiration for grind style calisthenics come from?
Well, the base inspiration came from everything about Red Delta Project, which is I take a very principle-based approach to fitness, where I'm always just looking at, all right, how does the body actually work? What are the natural principles that are governing how we actually function, kind of thing, like looking at a machine saying, all right, how does this thing actually work? Because then if something is off, you can be like, well, this is how it's supposed to work. And then it's a lot easier to diagnose and assess and then fix. And so that's what I've always been doing with fitness. And for years, I've always been looking for, how does exercise actually work for the body? How does it actually make the body get bigger and stronger and stuff? Because let's be honest, we really don't have that much of a clear beat on what makes a workout effective. Because you can say, this is an effective workout, give it to 100 people, and half of them will be like, I got nothing from this. Well, whatever you thought made that workout effective isn't really the bottom line of what makes it effective. So over the past close to 10 years or so, I've been recognizing that the ability to get what you want from your exercises boils down to, again, how well you know how to use your muscles. It's like your body is a musical instrument. If I gave you a saxophone and said, here, play this, your ability to play actual music boils down to how well do you know how to use that saxophone. It doesn't come from, oh, this is the best engineered saxophone. It's not your practice routine. It's not what time of day you practice or what you eat before you're playing and everything. It's like, how good a saxophone player are you? And it's the same thing with the human body. Our human body has over 200 muscles in it, which are like the keys on that saxophone. So are you aware of these keys, and do you know how to use them very well? And unfortunately, the vast majority of us have never been taught how to use our body well. We've only been told, use it hard. So that'd be like you saying, oh, I'm sure if I just blow into this thing as hard as I can and just hit the keys for hours every day until my fingers are bleeding, I'm sure I'll become a great saxophone player. It's like, no, that doesn't work that way. And it's the same thing with the body. You can get some degree of success, but unfortunately, most of us are not taught how to become good at what we're doing. But that's the opportunity that calisthenics provides us, is again, it says, all right, how good are you at actually using your body? And what can we learn to how to use it better? So it's been my long time mission of, how do we actually learn how to do this? Because teaching someone how to use their body better is incredibly difficult to do. I've long been frustrated by it, because I would give someone an exercise and they'd be like, when will I feel a difference? Well, probably 6 months from now. Like I had a couple of exercises I developed, and it was like literally months until I noticed a difference. But when I started to understand the 4 levels of the neuromuscular hierarchy that I based grind style calisthenics off of, I noticed that at the baseline is our neural connection and how well we can use our muscles. Then it's down to, can we use our muscles in a synergistic way or a coordinated way to create a stable environment for our body? Then how much juice can we give our muscles? In other words, how strong can we send a neural signal to them saying contract harder? And then it's how long can we do it for? And each one of those is layered one on top of the other. So the better the connection you have, the better your stability can be. The better your stability can be, the better your strength can be. The better your strength can be, the better your endurance and your ability to build muscle and hypertrophy can be. So if you address it in exactly that order, you take the old system that I had of, it'll take months for you to improve something, and it shrinks it and fast tracks it down to a matter of days, or even a couple of weeks. And it doesn't take nearly as long or nearly as much work as it used to, because figuring out, how does the body actually work? How do we actually learn how to use our muscles? Well, you do it in these 4 steps. Oh, okay. Well, we'll do that in every workout. And as you do it in that format, then your progress increases very, very quickly. It feels awesome. Feels so good.
How frequently do you typically recommend people to hit their muscles when they're doing bodyweight training? Do you feel like you can hit them more frequently compared to, beating the hell out of them in the gym with heavy weights and machines? Or is it kind of just dependent on your volume per session?
It depends on a number of factors. It depends on volume. It depends on intensity. It depends on even the emotional state you have going into your workouts. So it depends on a number of things. But the general rule is the more fatigue you accumulate in a workout, the more rest and recovery you're going to need. So, and the rest and recovery rates are different for everybody too. Like if you're younger, you may recover faster. If you're anxious and emotionally stressed right now, it's going to take longer. If you're not sleeping well, if your diet is less than optimal, like there's a number of reasons. There's so much nuance to this thing. So the rule of thumb I always give people is if you're more tired and fatigued and sore and achy and stuff, you need more rest. If you're ready to rock and roll and hit it hard, then go for it. Listen to your body. It's good, and it may be different for different muscle groups, but you may feel that you also experience it differently. Like at first you may feel like, oh, wow, I'm not really feeling it that much in the muscles right now. I'm going to do it more frequently. But as you become more proficient in how well you can stabilize, you'll be able to strengthen your muscles more. You'll be able to push yourself a lot harder. And as that increases, you may feel like, oh man, my legs are toast after that bodyweight workout. It's going to be a few days for sure. So listen to your body. If it's tired, rest it. If it's fresh, work it. But always remember, of course, that you get the results through that adaptation phase when you're recovering. If you're going into a workout and you're like, all right, time to create a stimulus for change. If you're tired and stiff and sore and achy and grumpy and negative in your mind, you're going to have a hell of a time creating some sort of a stimulus for change. So yeah, you're going to work your tail off, but it's not really going to do you a whole lot of good.
Right, absolutely. You wrapped up a series of videos, not really wrapped up, but you've completed a significant number of videos discussing micro workouts. And the logo that you used for that was riffing on the Micro Machines logo, which, were a wonderful toy from my childhood, and I'm sure yours as well. Where did the idea and the inception for that come from?
Well, again, it comes down to a principle-based approach. I'm always coming back to, okay, what are the principles that we need to adhere to for things to actually work? And when you get really focused and you understand the principles more, you also start to understand that you can make things happen with a fraction of the time, money, and energy. And one of the latest pieces that I'm really trying to understand is that the purpose of an effective workout isn't to work hard, it's to create a stimulus to change. It's feeding instructions into your body saying, hey, I need you to be able to step up and perform at a slightly higher level. And understanding that is a total game changer, because if your whole point of working out is just work hard, then you're largely, again, missing the point. It's kind of like just going to the saxophone and saying, I'm just going to make noise with this thing for hours every day, and I'm sure that's a good game plan, versus how do I actually play this thing better? And when proficiency is your goal, the great thing about that is you can actually teach yourself how to do something better in a very short period of time. You don't need hours and hours out of the day. Some things do take a lot long. Like I went backcountry skiing the other day for 5 hours. Like that's not a small chunk of change. So some things do take a good amount of time. But if you get down on the floor and you're like, I want to teach my muscles to be bigger and stronger, then you need to progressively work them. You need to be able to say, hey, muscles, this is what you did last time. Now I need you to step it up. And that could be any number of things, more reps, more resistance, whatever. But you can tell your muscles that in a matter of minutes. You don't need 90 minutes in the gym in order to do that. Because if you're saying, all right, I did 15 close push-ups last time and my elbows were winging out like crazy, and then this time you get 17 push-ups and your elbows were in tight to your side the whole time, boom, you just fed your body a progressive stimulus. Saying, all right, this is how I want you to do it now. It's a little better than last time. And as long as you did that, that's the thing that actually tells your body to change. And if you do that in 5 minutes, well, 5 minutes. That's all
Yeah.
you needed. You didn't need to do it. Now, you may want to get more practice into reinforcing stuff, but recognizing that you have a definitive goal gives you the objective to shoot for. There's that saying that goes around the internet of like, I don't stop when I'm tired, I stop when I'm done, kind of thing. And it's kind of portrayed as this, like, I may be tired, but I'm not going to stop. I'm going to be a badass and I'm going to blood, sweat, and tears. I'm going to keep pushing until the work is done. But you can also take it on the other side and be like, I'm not going to stop or just go until I'm tired. I'm stopping now, not because I'm tired, because I'm not exhausted, but I'm done. Like, I had an objective for today's workout and I accomplished it in 15 minutes. There's not a whole lot of reason to keep going.
Yeah.
And I'm not stopping because I'm tired. I'm stopping because I'm done. I actually had an objective in this workout and I accomplished it. Game over. That's what's necessary. And that's the whole idea with micro workouts, is if you can create a stimulus in 10 minutes or so, then great. Get it done in 10 minutes. Why bloat it out to an hour and a half when it doesn't need to be? There's no extra reward to working harder that's not necessary.
Correct. Given the present situation with COVID-19 and all of that, and everybody more or less being forced to work out from home, have you, I don't know if you track your metrics on your site or the YouTube channel or sales of the books or whatnot, have you seen like a stark increase in everything since all of this started happening a couple of weeks ago? Yeah,
I have. Certainly, I think anybody who's been a bodyweight calisthenics aficionado has seen something like that, largely, again, because Google likes past traffic and history. So, like right now, every fitness expert in the world is like, oh, here's a home bodyweight workout you can do at home. And Google's like, yeah, but you're a power lifter talking about working out in gyms. So your stuff is cool, but this guy over here has been putting up YouTube videos for the past 10 years on how to do bodyweight training at home. So I'm going to give him a little bit more link juice because of that.
Right.
So it has been growing. It has been very exciting. It's almost like this weird utopian like experience. Like imagine a world where nobody went to the gym and everybody worked out at home. And it's like, God, what would that be like? Well, now we're finding out. And it's kind of scary in many ways too. It's like, oh boy.
Pressure's on now.
The pressure's on, like, oh.
That's one thing I found funny, and you had to expect it to happen, because you've got all the guys that go to the gym, the guys and the girls that are known for their gym routines and all that. Then they can't go to the gym anymore, and then they start pumping out content for bodyweight workouts, and my brain goes off. I said, sure, they might understand what to do, but still, if they're not doing this stuff day in and day out, or week after week, I'm not going to be inclined to believe, or I'm not going to put as much credibility into their workouts as somebody like you or some of the other calisthenic channels on YouTube that have been doing this stuff for years and years and years. It's just, you might understand some of the methodology behind it, but I don't think they can relate it as efficiently or as effectively to the masses that have maybe coming from either complete novices, or transitioning to the gym themselves. Because those people that are trying to make these home workouts that aren't used to it probably have to overcome their own learning hurdles and figure out how to make things work.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think of where I was when I first started to discover bodyweight training and calisthenics, and I was putting up YouTube videos back in 2009 and 2008. And yeah, I mean, I had been in the fitness industry for over almost 10 years at that point, and I knew a decent amount and stuff, so it wasn't bad. But I think back to what I knew back then, I'm like, dude, you knew jack squat about what you were doing, kind of thing. And I mean, I look at some of the stuff I have produced, like my table of progressive elements in smart bodyweight training, of how the 9 ways you can progress bodyweight training, and that those 4 steps of neuromuscular proficiency that grind style calisthenics is based on. I mean, the grind style calisthenics system, it's a relatively short book, but that took me 5 years to learn and research and write.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something that I just popped out in a weekend of like, oh, I guess I need to do bodyweight training stuff now. That was something that developed through a lot of trial and error with a lot of people for a very long time to get to the level that it's at now. And it's still developing.
Yeah.
It's still getting better. So I don't want to knock anybody and say, oh, you guys don't know what you're talking about and stuff, because a lot of them are very good at what they do.
Right.
But yeah, if your plumbing breaks, you call a plumber, not an electrician.
Correct.
You call in the experts. And this is a time where who has the most experience with not just even bodyweight training, but working out at home.
Yeah.
Or training online. Like everyone and their mom is like, I'll train you online and stuff. It's like, who has a system of training people online that's been in place?
Right.
Because training people online is way different than doing it in person. And in many ways, it is so much harder. It's something I've been exploring and getting into for the past couple of years. And boy, let me tell you, it is 10 times harder to get any sort of result online than it is in person. In person is a cakewalk compared to training people online. And there's a lot to learn about that too as well.
What do you think is some of the hurdles with training online clients and getting them to see results?
Well, you're not there with them. It's not personal training. I do some degree of coaching remotely and stuff. People are like, oh, I want personal training online. I'm like, hold on, stop. It's not personal training. We have to put that there. Unless you're physically with the person, you're not personally training them.
Correct.
I call it remote programming because, again, with that proficiency, like to me personally, like it fills me with a lot of anxiety to do any sort of remote programming because I'll tell someone, okay, do, push-ups, 5 sets, so many reps and stuff. And I send it off to them and it's like, I don't know how they're doing those push-ups. They could be like going to that saxophone and just making noise.
Right.
And then they report back, hey, that was great. I felt awesome. And they're doing crap. Their workouts are junk, but I can't see it. I can't be with them to know that. So that fills me with a lot of anxiety personally because I can't see it one-on-one. If I was with them, and I saw what they're doing, I might be like, whoa, hold on. Okay, that is not what you should be doing at all. That's not the exercise for you.
Yeah.
Let's do this other thing and focus on this point. But if I'm not aware of that, I can't train you. I'm not coaching you. I'm just giving you ideas and recommendations,
right? Which
is better than nothing, but it's certainly not on the level of being there with you in person,
correct,
one-on-one. It's the quality. To get that quality to that level, I mean, I don't know how they do it. Some people are very good at it, but boy, it is so hard, so incredibly hard to do.
Have you gotten any requests or a demand to film your workouts live? So if say you've got a push day coming up and you could live stream your workouts on YouTube or anything, have you gotten requests for people to do that there so they can understand how to progress through a grind style calisthenics workout?
I haven't, thankfully. Personally, like I don't even like putting up my videos of like how I work out online because one is recording a workout just totally changes the workout because I got to like stop and set up the camera and get the angle and, oh no, wait, that wasn't right there. And I mean, if I have workouts on my YouTube channel in the grind style calisthenics and micro workouts tab and stuff. But if you're watching one where it's like, here's my workout, this is what I do and stuff. No, that's not my actual workout because the second a camera is on you, it's different. The tempo, the pace, everything about it is very, very different. So I haven't done that specifically with live and everything. And the other thing too is I have a very free-form and flexible approach. Like recently I've been playing around with not even having a very strict routine in my workouts because my lifestyle, even before coronavirus hit, has been completely chaotic and all over the place. Yeah. And I noticed that sticking to a strict routine was actually doing me more harm than good. So I went with more of a flexible approach where I was able to, again, go back to the idea of, well, if it's tired, I'm going to rest it. And if it's fresh, I'm going to work it. And having more of a flexible approach worked better for me because there were days where I was like, well, today's chest day, time to do those dips. And my arms and my shoulders would be like, dude, we're not up for this. Like, what are you doing? No, stop doing it. Like, I really don't want to do this workout, but I have to do it. So I abandoned that approach because knowing that, oh man, my shoulders are shot to hell from the class I had to teach yesterday. I'm going to give it a couple of days. Then I get into it and my shoulders are like, yeah, let's crush it. Okay, good. Now this is going to be a better workout. Yeah. So there's that. There's also the fact that what I do is going to be different than what you need to do. Right. Like I could go through a workout and be like, oh my God, that was the best workout ever. That was fantastic. You could do it and it could be the worst thing for you.
True.
It could be the wrong techniques, the wrong progressions, the wrong time and everything. I'm very much a believer in giving people the tools to do this on their own. Because once you become more proficient, you're probably going to be able to build and do workouts that are going to be better on your own than with my guidance. Right. And that's why I wrote like Grind Style Calisthenics, to give you those tools. Like, read this book, understand these concepts. You know those concepts, you're going to be good to go. And take care of things for yourself. Because you're probably going to do things better than what I would recommend.
Fair enough. At-home workouts have been around, since the 80s, going back to like the Jane Fonda, Suzanne Summer tapes, and then we had 8-minute abs and all of that, and P90X, which was kind of my gateway into training at home, for better or worse. But it taught me how to get the most out of bodyweight training and just some dumbbells and all of that stuff. As somebody that is giving people information on how to structure workouts at home, what is your opinion of the spectrum of at-home fitness programs that are marketed to people?
Yeah, I mean, every program that ever gets created has value and validity to it. Someone figured something out somewhere along the lines, some sort of formula or some sort of idea, and they tried it out and to some degree got what they wanted out of it. So it has some value. Now, whether or not that's going to be value for you is up for you to decide. So that's why I always recommend start with a program, out there, whether it's one of my programs or something 8-minute abs or whatever, start there, use it as a basic template. Be like, okay, experience it, get your hands dirty with it and stuff. But make note of where you have pain points, where you have friction and stuff, like putting on those shoes and you're like, oh man, I've got rubbing in my heel after a few miles. Make note of that and then make changes accordingly. Fitness is always open source. And it's always something we can infinitely customize to your specific needs. And it's in that customization where you're really going to get the stuff that's going to work best for you. It's not going to be very likely that someone's going to hand you something right out of the box and it's going to be a perfect fit. And even if it is a perfect fit, it's not going to stay that way forever because we're all changing.
Correct.
Right? Someone out there had the perfect workout program that was working awesome for them until coronavirus hit. And then everything changed, and now that perfect program is junk because it doesn't work in our current situation. So being able to have a template or some sort of a basic principle protocol as your foundation is good, but then adjusting, adapting, and being flexible to your current situation is where the real magic happens. So you can actually do what's best for you in your current situation, best for your resources, best for your energy level, best for your mentality even. So that way you can get the most out of every single workout on a case-by-case basis.
Perfect. Your newest book that you have coming out, Calisthenics for Beginners. You've released several books to this point. Why choose now to start doing a book for beginners when it seems that you've been doing bodyweight and at-home workouts for so long, minimal equipment workouts for years now, over a decade? Why now decide to do the book for beginners?
Yeah, this is a very different project than my other books, for sure, because I was actually headhunted by a publishing company. Most of my other books are self-published. And so this was a company came out and said, we want to write a book about calisthenics for beginners. We think you'd be great to write it. Would you write it for us? And I was like, sure, great, because I had thought about doing it. Plus, I always get asked questions like, if I'm just starting out, where should I begin? And any of my books would be fine for a beginner because they're all basic principle based. You always want to start based on principle. Once you understand the principles, you can build up and up and up like crazy. If you don't understand the principles, nothing you do will ever really be that solid of a foundation. So grind style calisthenics is great for beginners. Smart bodyweight training is also pretty good for beginners as well, although I think grind style is a little bit more straight to the point. But still, I know a lot of people out there, they're like, it's the whole, Microsoft Word for Dummies, the Dummies series. Like everybody likes to know, it's like, what's the most base level floor of information I need to know, which is a very good attitude to have because you are only as strong as you are stable. You can only build to the degree of your foundation. And that's what this book is. It's like, this is the ultimate foundation to get started with calisthenics, not just from a technical standpoint, but just a mental standpoint of what do you need to really understand about diet and preparation and programming and all these things. Like, what do you have to know in one shot? And that's what this book is all about.
When sitting down to write this, how do you get in your mindset to write? What's going through your mind? How did you develop your writing voice? If you did, me for instance, it's kind of like an amalgamation of a bunch of 80s movies I've seen as a kid, action movies, being a smartass and sarcasm in my family growing up, and the Sports Center style from like the late 90s when Stuart Scott and Rich Eisen and all of those, Dan Patrick was still there doing ESPN and Sports Center. So it's kind of this amalgamation of all of this stuff. Where do you get your writing voice from? And did you have any technical writing classes through your schooling and all that? Or is it just kind of your natural voice?
Just more natural. I always loved writing. It was one of the few things that I was actually halfway decent at in school. And I've never been good at anything in life, but if there was anything I was somewhat good at, it's being able to convey an idea through writing. And so that's kind of transferred over into these ideas and being able to get it down into simple terms. Because when I was a student in school and stuff, I always needed things dumbed down big time for me. Like, take a concept, make it as simple as possible, and then make it much simpler than that in order for me to understand it. So my mind is always trying to be like, how do we explain this in as few words as possible, this complex idea, get it down into the kernel, simple core. And so that's what I try to do with my writing, is take complex ideas, get them down shorter. You'll notice in my books too, that the first two books I came out with were huge, in size. They're much bigger, they're much longer and stuff. And now the books I'm putting out are like maybe 100 pages because I can get the relevant information out so much easier. In fact, I'm going to be doing a rewrite of my first book, Fitness Independence, and it's going to maybe a third as long, but it's going to be 3 times as powerful. So it's same thing with micro workouts. Let's get it shorter. Let's make it so that it doesn't cost as much time, as much energy, as much money, but the potency is far greater than before. And that's what my whole approach is how do we make it simple and much more effective?
Do you have a process that you go through when you're writing your books? Do you sit down, you break out an outline, or is it just kind of, you get the spark of inspiration and you're ready to sit down and you just start pounding away?
Yep. Especially writing this next one, it really helped me dial in my writing process to make it so much easier than it was before. My first book, Fitness Independence, took me almost 10 years to write. My last book, Grindstyle Calisthenics, took me 2 months. So that tells you how much more efficient I've become. Right. And I've learned the secret is to spend more time on the outline than anything else. So if I get an idea for a book, I'll pull up Google Docs and I'll write out a rough outline. And then I'll keep that open on my desktop for about a month or two, or at least several weeks. And I'll fill in every little point in that outline I can imagine. Every topic I want to hit, every little point I want to make, and I'll just write out that outline. And then by the time that's all hashed out, most everything should be there in front of me. So then it's just as simple as fill in the blanks. You just go from one point to the next and elaborate, and boom, 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 boom. And that's, by the time you get it done, you're like, there, it's written, and it's very clear, and it's more of a concise format and stuff. And then it's a matter of send it through proofreading and make some images, and away you go.
Very cool.
So yeah, if you get a good outline, the writing process is a cinch.
You said for the most recent book, The Calisthenics for Beginners, that you were approached by a publishing company. Have they been very handsy with what you're writing and the content and the style or the lingo that you're using, or are they kind of hands off and as long as you're hitting certain benchmarks, they're mostly laissez-faire with it?
Yeah, exactly. They really taught me, again, the value of those outlines. Like, I used to outline my books for maybe a couple hours, and then I'd start writing. They were like, here's our book, here's the points. And they send me the full-on outline of like, here's everything we want. This is how many words we want per section. Just fill in the blanks. It was the easiest book I ever wrote. Oh my gosh, it was like,
awesome.
How could I? It was almost not like writer's block was the furthest thing from me because it was so easy to write this book. Because they just simply said, we need this many words on this topic. And if whatever I wrote, they were fine with.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't tell me anything how I should write things. They just said, write about what kind of clothing you would want to wear. And it's like, that's a great topic. Why didn't I think of that? Great. And so, that's the thing is the company itself, the way they operate is they do all the research beforehand.
Okay.
So they come to the author and they say, our research shows we need a book on this topic. It should cover these points and it should be written in this way. That's what's probably going to be the most effective book for the reader. And then I said, okay. And then I fill in my expertise. So it is my book.
Yeah.
It's just the points they wanted to make sure they covered, which half of this stuff I wouldn't have even thought about. So I'm glad they told me to do it.
Fantastic.
But yeah, it was very easy.
Last time when we were discussing your supplementation regimen, you said it was pretty minimal, bare bones, and outside of maybe a pre-workout, which was usually a cup of tea for you, there wasn't a whole lot going on. Have you made any alterations to that at all, or is it more or less the same?
Not really. Every once in a while, I still think, maybe I should start taking creatine and stuff, just because that's like the major thing that everybody's like, it's super safe, it's very cheap. Mm-hmm. It's almost like even if it does 1% for you, it's still worth it.
Right.
But it hasn't been on the forefront of my mind. I haven't made it enough of a priority to really start doing it. But I keep thinking that it just pops up in my mind every once in a while, like, you should go get some creatine this weekend. That's a good idea. And then I just totally forget about it. So I need to be a little bit better about that. But yeah, pretty much still the same approach as last time.
Perfect.
Yep.
What else is in store for the rest of 2020 for you and the Red Delta project?
Lots. I've got several other books in the works. I've got a book on isometric training and improving your neuromuscular proficiency as quickly as possible. So that I'm finishing up shooting and photography for now. I've got a book on fast, efficient micro workouts that is outlined and ready to rock and roll. Mm-hmm. I've got the rewrite for fitness independence plans, and hopefully it's a good book, but I want to make it ultimately life-changing for people. Yeah. So that's what I'm also planning on. The Grind Style Calisthenics app that's out now is due for some serious updates. Right now, as it stands, the app is okay. It's basically the goal of the GSC app is to give you the availability of an entire year's worth of Grind Style Calisthenics programming. Mm-hmm. Like I just lead you through an entire year worth of workouts in the Grind Style system. And right now it's formatted for 3 years, and it has a system that works okay. But it's got an update coming in the next several weeks that's going to make it work like butter. It's going to be freaking awesome. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to have the full year worth of workouts. So that way people are like, well, what should I do on a workout? Boom, there you go. It's on your phone. I'll literally lead you by the hand through every single workout for an entire year. So that's coming up as well. Yeah, that's the stuff on my plate right now. And continuing again with YouTube videos, the Red Delta Project podcast will continue to grow and be produced every single week. So that's still in place as well. So yeah, lots on the table. Lots to
Fantastic. Isometrics are a pretty big component in the micro workouts that you've been doing, or it starts off as to kind of way to, I guess, pre-exhaust or pre-fatigue the muscles, or you're using it as a burnout. Where did you first start? Mm-hmm. What was it about Isometrics that jumped out at you and said, hey, this is a worthwhile addition to home training?
Yeah. So one of the companies that I'm affiliated with, Dragon Door, is coming out with an Isometrics device in the near future. And one of the guys who's championing this device, Paul Wade, wrote Convict Conditioning, which was one of my first introductions to the world of progressive bodyweight training. So I never really thought much about it myself, but every single thing that Paul Wade has ever put out there ends up being a big improvement in the way I'm doing things. So when he puts it out, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to take a leap of faith and trust you on this. So I started experimenting with it. And again, at that point, I had known that this neuromuscular proficiency thing was a foundation for effective, safe, and productive workouts. Mm-hmm. So my mind was always like, how do I teach people how to do this? Because it's literally like trying to teach someone how to feel something different in their workout. It's like teaching someone who can't see what color is. because it really is like, I need your brain to think differently about this exercise, but I can't make your brain think a certain way. So how do I do this and convey it? So that was an issue I was always thinking in the back of my head. So when I started trying the isometrics, just playing around with them and stuff, I noticed that my own neuromuscular proficiency like improved 10 times faster. Like I noticed more improvement in 2 weeks than I had in the previous 2 years with trying to do things. Like muscles were waking up like crazy. I was going from one workout to the next with a very noticeable improvement on how well I could engage my muscles and stability and everything. And that really just woke me up of like, holy smokes, this is the ultimate workout hack of all time. Just because it makes that process almost impossible to mess up and so much faster. And that's why I fell right into it. Like, oh yeah, this is the best thing ever. I'm just going to totally follow this rabbit hole wherever it goes. Because when it takes something that's complicated and expensive and takes a lot of time, and suddenly it's super simple, foolproof, and it takes a fraction of the time and cost. Oh yeah, I'm all over that. Anything that gets easier is something I'm going to go all over. And that's exactly what isometric training does.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great, Matt. Well, this was a blast as always, man. This was just like last time. It's lots of good information, and you are a very valuable resource, especially given the present climate of all things considered. So thank you, sir, for joining us, and feel free to plug anything and everything Red Delta Project.
Yeah, just if you search anything on the internet, Red Delta Project, you will come up with everything of mine. It's one of the nice things of the unique domain. Red Delta Project on socials. The Red Delta Project YouTube channel is where the bulk of my stuff is. Of course, the Red Delta Project podcast. And if you search just Matt Schifferle or Grind Style Calisthenics on Amazon and stuff, you'll come up with all of my books. And again, I have a ton of free ebooks and PDFs and stuff also available on reddeltaproject.com. I don't even want your email address. There's nothing like, give me your email address. It's free, right? No, literally click it. It's instantly downloaded and it's your stuff. So got a ton of resources for you in reddeltaproject@gmail.com if anybody wants to hit me up and chat.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Matt. Have a great day and stay safe out there, man.
Thank you. You too. And to everyone listening, stay happy, stay healthy out there as well.